Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about the EF 135 f2. It is honestly my favorite lens purchase to date. I really love what it's doing for my photography, what it's teaching me. I've had it for about 2 months and I wanted to kind of give you a kind of practical, real life 2 month review of what it's like to have this lens and why I think you should buy it. So let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And let's start off with what is so ugly about this lens that would make you like turn off from it and not want it. Well, to start off, I've tried to take it out to use it as a macro type of lens where there's flowers and bugs and anything smaller than about 4 inches. This lens will fail miserably at it. For the first problem that it has, its minimum focus distance is just long enough that you can't really lock on to the subject really well. You can't frame it in your sensor to create a composition that is really beautiful and creative. I've been struggling with it. I don't think this lens is good for it at all. And I see now why people go towards the 100 millimeter macro, because it offers that really close focal distance that you can really get close to your subject, lock on, frame it. You're going to be too far away to really do anything. I could not even capture a bee on a flower petal with this. I gave up. I'll never do it again. I'd rather take my 35mm macro to allow me to at least do something proper with it, even though I don't like the 35 at that macro. I think that focal range is not really like beautiful. It'd be cool to have a 100, but I thought this lens was going to solve that for me, but it is not a macro substitute. You need a proper macro lens to do that kind of work. What else is ugly about this lens? It is not a birding or wildlife lens. I was kind of hoping, because I had nothing above the 105 range that the 24 to 105 gets me, that it would allow me to do something at a certain distance with small animals like birds and stuff. But even from my porch to like a bird feeder, this thing cannot get close enough. It is no substitute for a proper like super zoom. From my experience, I've tried like 70 to 200, 100 to 400, and even those lenses are not proper wildlife. I think you need 600 to 800 range to really get a bird, fill your frame and composition properly, where you're not scaring the animals away. You can stay like a normal distance, away. This is not going to solve those problems of like shooting small animals from far, far away. Not the purpose for this lens. So what is like just bad about it? It's not ugly, but it's not great. It's kind of just like, it's okay. And that would be anything indoors. So yes, you can use it indoors and you can make use of it, but you're severely limited by the amount of space you have. In a room like this, it's just a few hundred square feet, if that. It's almost useless unless you're shooting a really small target. You're never going to do a portrait photography with this. You'll never get the full body. You'll always be unhappy with the composition and the amount of movement you can get. This is an outdoor lens when it comes to portraits. I took it to a Comic-Con indoors and I got some cool shots, but they would have been better if I had a 50 or a 35 or that zoom range. I got cool shots, but I always felt limited and I was always cutting things off that I didn't want to. So it's bad indoors, but not ugly and not great. And to go along with the indoors, pretty much any event that is kind of indoors, or you need that quick versatility, even if it was outdoors, you're stuck to this 135. It's a prime. If somebody all of a sudden wants a portrait and you can't back up in the middle of a crowd, even if you're outdoors, you need a variable zoom for that. Even a 70 to 200 would be better than this for an event. So I'll probably bring this to a wedding, but it'll probably sit on like a second camera body or be used for just one specific thing. I would never walk around with this at an event as a professional to capture an event properly, or it wouldn't be the only lens I use for the whole day. So what is good about this lens? Obviously, if I'm recommending it, it must heavily outweigh the bad and the ugly, and it does. The obvious stuff, well, a lot of people are getting rid of this lens because it's an EF. There's the new RF lens that's probably coming out. There's new RF mounts that probably look a little bit better, have more functionality. You can pick this up for $700 Canadian. That's probably like what, 500 US. Incredible value for what you get out of this. Super zooms go for like $1,000 to $2,000 to offer a very similar and sometimes worse quality of image than the 135. So huge benefit to your work for a very low price. It's kind of inconspicuous. It's not too heavy. It kind of fits in your bag. Carrying those old 70-200s is really annoying, and this gets really good shots for a small lens. Looking at its aperture of f2, everything looks sharp. I have some lenses with really low apertures that do not look good, and they're very soft at their lowest aperture. This is not the case with the 135. You're going to be really, really happy shooting all day at f2 with all of the shots you get. Always locks on, always sharp, and it looks really, really creative. Which brings us to, let's talk about the creative that it produces. Because it's a kind of the super zoom range at 135, at f2, the compression and what it does to a subject and the separation is absolute magic. It's something that I never ever saw with the 50 or 85, which are really, really acclaimed portrait lenses, but they've got nothing on this guy right here. I've never seen anything like it in my photography that comes even close to this. The fact that I have this now, I'd probably never even pick up my 85 again. There'd be no point. It just simply can't produce the kind of quality of creative that this lens is producing for me because of how it flattens the background and brings it beside the subject but keeps that separation. It is as magical as people say. Really, really impressive. And it's meant for portraits for that reason. Outdoor portraits are ideal. It could do indoor if you have the space, but this is meant for people, outdoors. Headshots are ideal, 3/4. It could do full body if you really have that space. It gets a little trickier and a little more challenging because then you're really far away from your subject, but not so far that I would even put it in the bad category. It always felt usable to me. A really unexpected benefit of this lens was street photography. And if you think about it, if it's failing shooting really small objects and birds and insects and flowers, then it should do really good with large objects. And it does, outdoors. So walking around with this lens in a city or urban environment, a large outdoor space, shooting landscapes is really, really nice for a couple reasons. One, obviously the compression. It brings your background closer, really frames things up nice, really beautiful. You don't get that kind of like 3D popping, warping effect. It flattens out this nice, creative, artistic image for you. But it offers a vision that is not really possible with human sight and cell phones and your standard photography kit lenses. When you offer a view of the 135 millimeter, that kind of zoom, you're letting your viewers see the world in a very, very specific, tight way from far away, compressed, that really creates a magical image for people. And I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but I've got some really, really neat photos that I didn't see the world in the way that this lens offered me after taking the shot. But now that I know that it's possible, I'm happy to take this out on the street as opposed to a 35 mil, which I know would give me the variety, but I'm going to kind of just get normal life photos that everybody can do with their phone. This is going to give you something that not everybody can do. And I think that is important in photography, to do something unique. And the most important thing to me is every time I take this out, I walk away with a photo that makes me go, wow. Not just a whole bunch of good stuff like I achieved my goal for the day, but wow, holy crap, that was a nice shot. Like whatever this did was special. And I think that's why I think people need to have this in their kit, who are portrait shooters, who want something really extra, who are missing something special. The 135 is a really, really key lens that will get you those wow photos. Thanks, guys. See you later.